Hey guys, so this is my first project for 2017. I'm really excited. It's my first jacket ever. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited because it's part of my 2017 sewing resolution. So I figured it was just going to jump right in. So what I made was the Rigel Bomber by Papercut Patterns, which has actually been out for quite a long time. So there was a lot of resources online about this jacket. The fabric that I used, I actually purchased at Mood Fabrics in LA last year. It's actually in one of my old haul videos if you didn't get a chance to see it. The fabric itself is really thick and it's this beautiful, vibrant jacquard. Originally it was marked as a Marc Jacobs fabric, but I'm not sure. I haven't even seen it anywhere online or in stores or anything. The flowers were beautiful, but I was very concerned about the placement of the flowers, hence why as you can see here, I'm cutting something that's actually the front of the jacket on a single layer, just so that I could verify where the placement of the flowers were going to be, so that I didn't have any weird flowers across my chest. So I actually just flipped over the pattern piece, cut it out in one single layer, and then I flipped them like that so that, you know, I could at the very least verify that everything was good to go. So because the jacquard was kind of just finicky and some of the threads could get pulled very easily, I decided to use tailor's tacks for most of the markings that I had to do. The tailor's tacks that I just did in this shot were for the welt pockets, which I also had never done before. Shortly before recording this video, I actually spent a while practicing my welt pockets just to make sure that I knew that they would turn out well before I did them on the really nice fabric. So just because I'm on a stabilizing kick, I went ahead and used silk organza across the zipper where the zipper placement was going to be, as well as the top, just to make sure nothing would stretch out at all as I was working on it, just because I've had so many projects that not work out because they've stretched out on the bias. But you can see here everything was tacked into place, and then we have a little bit of like interfacing so that I could put it in the welt pockets. Couple pieces here for the bodice itself, or like the front of the jacket, and then also on the welt itself there gonna be just making sure that it's stable and that through wear and tear it doesn't get all flimsy or anything. So the process of sewing welt pockets is actually really not that complicated. The tricky part is just making sure that you take your time with each step of the process. In this particular step, I was just sewing the welt itself, trimming down the edges and the corners to make sure that when I turn it inside out, everything lies flat. I did, after every step, I would make sure to press everything just to make sure that it was all set and there would be no weird shifts or anything, so that things would get sewn, wonky or anything. So here I am putting the welt on the bodice front. Placement of the welt is you just have to be super careful about making sure to be aware that when you're actually sewing it onto wherever this welt pocket's going to be, that it's actually going to be sewn on the opposite way of where it's going to eventually sit. Because after you finish completing the pockets, the welt is going to be facing the opposite direction. I messed it up at a certain point. I can't tell from this part of the video, but I actually ended up having to completely take apart one of the pockets that I did because I sewed it on backwards. But here I'm putting in the pocket pieces, which are sewn on top of the welt, and this is on the right side of the fabric. So in order to actually make the pocket itself, after everything has literally been sewn onto the front of the jacket, you actually have to do a series of little clips. So here I am cutting into the right side of the fabric to create the opening of where the pocket is going to be. So you kind of clip to the ends, almost to the end actually. You probably leave about half an inch at the end of that kind of sliver where that pocket's going to be, And then right when you get to that last ½ inch or so, you actually cut out a little V. So you kind of see me slowing down the process right there. I turned mine backwards just so I could make sure that I have a perfect V as I was cutting. Cool, so there's one snip and the other, and as you're doing this, you just want to make sure not to cut into the pocket and not to cut into the welt. There I am moving the pieces aside, so I'm just cutting the center front of the jacket. I'm not cutting into any other part of it. And you want to do that on both sides, because if you don't do it properly, when you try and get the welt to sit properly, it's going to be pinching something or kind of sitting a little bit skewed. All right, so after cutting everything, there I am turning the pocket to the inside. And then I turn the pattern piece backwards, make sure that the edges and the corners are sitting nice and pretty. Cool, so everything looks good so far. So at that point, I pressed it and started matching up all the the edges of the pocket so that I could sew the pocket itself closed, because essentially at this point the pocket pieces are attached to the jacket, but they're just not a pocket yet. So once you sew all the way around that pocket, at that point you're good, and then you can flip the welt over to the correct position. So you're essentially just flipping it over, and then here I'm just making some markings and tacking the end of the welt down to the bodice. Cool, there's a completed pocket. And actually the pockets are the most time-consuming part about this entire jacket. Once the pockets are actually done, you just match up the rest of the jacket, the shell of the jacket, and it stitches up so quickly, like surprisingly so, after spending so much time on the welt pocket. So there I am. You can kind of see the two different colors organza that I had. I figured it wasn't going to be seen, and I had a bunch of it left over, so I might as well use it up. So that's the entire jacket completely open, but you can kind of see me forming a sleeve there. Cool, so that's actually the arm right there, and I'm matching up the seams on the armpits, and I am stitching up everything on the side. I'm sorry, pinning up everything on the side. Cool. And there it is, the shell of the jacket. So the lining itself, actually there's a lot of directions online. The pattern did not come with a lining set up, so that I actually had to look online. So many instructions on how to construct it, including adding this what I'm adding here is kind of a pleat to add some wearing ease to the center back of the jacket, just so that it's not skin tight against you. But essentially, in terms of drafting a lining, it is essentially the regular pattern pieces minus the facing, and then you literally just cut it up the same way. You cut it up and stitch it up the same way that you do the shell, including the facing. So you just want to make sure that you don't throw away your facing pieces. You make the facing, add your inner facing, give that some structure and stuff. But once you construct the entire facing, and here you are, see me use a scrap piece of paper to make sure I don't get glue on my iron. But anyway, so you put together the facing pieces, and then you just stitch them up to the edge of the lining, which you'll see shortly. So there I am pinning the lining to the facing, and actually it was kind of nice because at this point the jacket's coming along super quickly. It looks so beautiful. It's very lilac. I kind of had a lot of different options to choose from for the lining, and I think I did pretty well on this one. Anyway, so the part that was the most complicated for me was actually sourcing ribbing fabric. So you can kind of see here that the ribbing that I bought was very thin. It did have some stretch to it, but it was not what I wanted whatsoever. I think if I were to make this jacket again, which I probably will in like a solid color, I would probably buy the ribbing online, because nowhere around me here in San Francisco had a decent like jacket ribbing. So if I were to make like a regular hoodie or anything, I would not be able to find that fabric around here at all. So you can kind of see me, I put in the neck, and then you can see in this clip here that the ribbing just does not have enough body. I mean, it works, but it's my least favorite part of the entire jacket. Here I am constructing the ribbing that goes across the bottom of the jacket. It was just a straight rectangle, but I actually cut out part of it, so I shortened the length of that entire piece just so that it would be snug against the bottom of the jacket, because the ribbing that I bought did not have very good recovery and it wasn't super stretchy. So I just wanted to make sure that at the very least the ribbing parts of the jacket would be snug. Here I am checking, taking a little snip corner there, and then checking the bottom of the rim to make sure it lines up with the bottom of my pattern piece. Cool. So for the sleeve of the bomber jacket, I actually have very, very tiny wrists, like child's wrists. It's awful. I can't wear bangles at all. So I actually had to take out about an inch or so of the of the width of the wrist, just so that the sleeve would fit me properly. When I cut out that piece to the original side, like the sleeve would slide right off of my hand. So it definitely made it ruche quite a lot there. But it fits nice and snug, so that makes me very happy. Cool, so at this point, the ribbing is all attached to the shell of the jacket. Again, you can kind of see the ribbing's not as stiff and sturdy as I would like, but we persevere and we move on. So I added the zipper at this point. The zipper was also another one of those weird things, because I think it was probably an issue of where the pattern originated from, which I believe it's either an Australian or a New Zealand pattern designer. And the length of the zipper that the pattern is designed for is not universal. So the zipper that I bought was the closest that I could find, but it's still not long enough. Next time I make this jacket, I will be adapting the pattern to accommodate zippers that are found here in the United States, because I mean, I made it work and I kind of centered that zipper so it's not as obvious, but the zipper's not long enough. So the stitching of the zipper onto the jacket was really simple. It was an exposed zipper, and I had a double opening one, so I had I could completely open up the zipper, and so it was easy to sew. And you kind of see there that it just doesn't match all the way, but it does the job when stuff happens. All right, cool. So at this point, you can go ahead and attach the lining to the shell of the jacket. Essentially, you're sewing across the bottom of the facing piece, up the zipper, all the way around the zipper, and then you are kind of doing a little bit of action where the ribbing meets the lining inside. But at that point, the jacket is done. Stitches up so fast in comparison. Anyway, so the fit is great. Hopefully you would like to make this jacket for yourself, and see you guys next time.